Rev up your engines!
Cocotte says, I bought a new Mazda. When do you recommend to change the first oil and filter? Do performance filters do anything better for performance? Modern cars, you don't have to break them in like when I was a young mechanic. We used to change the oil the first 500 miles. But we used to change the oil regularly every 3,000 miles too, because cars didn't even have oil filters back in those days. They just had oil. So, you can change it at 3,000 miles. Now, as for the performance oil filters, they're better filters. They filter better. But they don't make your car perform any better. It's filtering the oil. It doesn't affect how your car runs. It's just if you're a bad boy or girl and you don't change your oil very often, they will filter the dirt out better over a long period of time. Like, let's say you're one of these guys that buys synthetic oil and you're crazy enough to change the oil every 15,000 miles. You have to buy the high-tech performance filter because that filtration material is made to last 15,000 miles. The cheap oil filters you get at discount auto parts stores, they're only good for maybe 5,000 miles. So they filter better, but they won't make it perform any better. Super Android said, I rebuilt my 5-liter on my 89 F-150 using conventional oil. Is this okay? Should I use synthetic? If it was totally rebuilt, you can use whatever you want. The synthetic oil costs more, it protects better. You don't want to switch in midstream. You got an old engine and it's been using regular oil and you switch to synthetic and have problems. But if you fully rebuilt that engine, you can use whatever kind of oil you want. You know, the full synthetic oil is better. Like if you live up north where it's really cold, synthetic oil flows better in really cold temperatures. Here in Texas, it doesn't really make any difference. But if you do live in a really cold climate, yeah, the synthetic stuff is better. And since you rebuilt it, if you rebuilt everything, it's not really going to matter. You got new bearings, you got new rods, you got new gaskets, so you're starting from scratch. So you could use synthetic if you want. Mark Walker says, is it bad to downshift a CVT transmission? Well, technically you can't downshift a CVT transmission because downshifting means shifting into lower gears. And the CVT transmissions don't really have gears. That's why they're called continually variable transmission. The ratios are always changing by drums and chains and different designs. Now, there are a whole bunch of different CVT designs on there, and I do believe there are a few of them that are a combo of CVT, and they do have some kind of gears in them. So, you know, if you have one that you can downshift, I don't like the CVTs, and if I had one, I would just put it and drive it and leave it there and pray that it lasted a long time, because I see the after effect when they do break. They are so complex and so expensive to repair. I wouldn't take a chance by downshifting the things myself if you were able to do it, if it was one of those hybrid ones. Nova says, my brake fluid's low, but I can't find any leaks. Is it possible I'm burning or evaporating fluid? You're losing fluid, you don't see any leaks. It can evaporate over time, but a long time. Like, I've had customers that had cars and they sit up for 15 years and they'll be somewhat low because it evaporated. Yes, but normal driving, it doesn't really evaporate. But if you're losing the fluid, you have to keep adding it in. Odds are your brake master cylinder's bad. The brake master cylinder can leak on the back seal. You're not going to see it leaking anywhere because that bolts into the brake booster. Then that fluid will leak into your booster. So if you take those 4 bolts off your master cylinder and pull it out of the brake booster, look inside with a flashlight, or if you got one of these borescopes like I have, look inside, and if you see there's a bunch of fluid in there, 1, you got to change the master cylinder, and 2, get a siphon and suck all the fluid out of the booster and pray it hasn't damaged the booster, because boosters are very expensive, but they're real big inside and a lot of fluid can get in there before they fill up. So odds are it's leaking inside the booster. Christopher Colling, he says, I got a 2017 Ford Escape 2-liter EcoBoost. Coolant was low by 20%. I topped it off with the incorrect coolant. Should have been Ford orange, not green. Am I in trouble? Not immediately. The original green one is an IAT coolant, inorganic acid coolant. And they only last 3-4 years or so. They start deteriorating. That's inorganic acid technology, IAT. New cars use organic acid technology, OAT, or in the case of Toyotas, HOAT, HOAT, which is hybrid organic acid technology. Now, the organic ones actually last longer than the inorganic ones, which is kind of opposite as far as I'm concerned, but that's chemistry for you. If you mix some of them, they're not going to clog up or anything, but you're never going to be able to get a correct reading when you take a reading of how cold it's going to prevent it from freezing, because it messes with the chemistry. It's not like it's going to gum it all up, but when you check it with one of those antifreeze checkers, you're not going to get a correct reading of how many degrees below 32 it'll protect, because the mixture of those two screw up the machines that read how cold it can get before it freezes solid. So at some point in time, I would advise flushing it out and putting just the organic acid one, the orange stuff, in instead. By the byway, says Scotty, I'm thinking about getting a 2014 Lexus IS250, 78,000 miles, or a 16 Mazda CX-5, 13,000 60,000 miles, or 2016 Toyota RAV4, 66,000 miles. Which is the best, most reliable, and easiest to work on? Well, none of them are that easy to work on anymore. If you're looking for longevity and reliability, it'd be between the Lexus IS 250 and the RAV4. Now, they're completely different kinds of vehicles, so you have to decide what you want. The IS 250 is a luxurious sedan. The RAV4 is a small SUV. So it depends on what you want. They're both going to last a long time, but you got to decide. Do I want an SUV that rides high, a little bit rough ride, or I do want a smooth riding Lexus? That's a decision you got to make yourself. Billy Blevins, I got a 2012 Corolla. How to reset the maintenance required light. You got that button you push for your trip odometer. If you push it, it'll be the odometer. You push it once, it'll be the trip odometer A. You push it the second time, it's trip odometer B. What you do is turn the key off, push the trip odometer in, turn the key on again. And if it goes dot, 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 and resets itself, great. If it doesn't, then what you do is, with the key still turned on, push the trip odometer one more time. Then it'll go to the next phase. Then turn the key off, turn the key on again with it pushed in, the trip odometer. Then it should reset. Now, if it doesn't reset then, push it one more to the trip B, and then turn it off, and with it pushed on your finger, turn the key back on. I forget which one it is. It's either the odometer, trip A, or trip B have to be shown to reset it. And whichever one it is, when it's showing, you turn the car off, then you push the trip odometer with the key off, turn the key on. Don't start the car, just turn the key on, and it will reset itself. What I do, half the time I work on the car, I get my phone, I Google reset, and it shows how to set so fast, I have to go look it up on my computer. The Woo Master says, what car fluid should you not put AT205 reseal in? You don't put it in brake fluid. You don't put it in the cooling system, but you do put it in a little bit in power steering. Maybe an ounce or two, like if you got a transmission or engine leak, you put the whole bottle in. But if it's power steering, you only put 2 or 3 ounces of it in, because it's a small system, so you don't use any much. But you don't use it in the brake system. You don't use it in the cooling system. It's for basically petroleum-based oils that it mixes with. It's just a polymer that rejuvenates rubber seals. It's the polymer that mixes with oil, petroleum-based oil. Leo Rivera says, do you recommend cleaning a mass airflow sensor, replace it with a new one? Well, it's worth cleaning. A can of MAF sensor spray is $8-10. They don't cost much. You can take it off the car, simple job, spray the heck out of it, let it air dry for about an hour, then put it back in. Maybe it'll fix it. Sometimes they get dirt and corrosion on them and they don't work right. If it doesn't work, then you replace one. It's always worthwhile trying to clean them because they do have thin little wires that measure how much air goes into the engine, and then the computer knows how much fuel to send to the fuel injectors, how long to pulse them. Any bit of dirt on those fine wires can give you a fake reading. So, and if it works, hey, clean it every once in a while. You don't need to clean it, but maybe once every few years. It doesn't get dirty that fast. Nick M says, I got an '08 Honda Civic. It shakes when it idles. Could this be a motor mount? How much would it cost to fix? It can be a zillion things that make them shake when they're idling. You could have a vacuum leak. You could have dirty fuel injectors. On Hondas, notoriously, you could have valves that aren't adjusted correctly. Honda's one of the few cars still left that you have to adjust the valves in the engine every once in a while. Most cars have hydraulically adjusted ones, or like Toyotas, they have stainless steel shims on the cam that can last 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles before they need adjusting. But Hondas, you got to adjust. Could need a valve adjusting, or it could need motor mounts. What you want to do is check everything. And if you want to check the motor mounts, if you got a jack, get a piece of wood, put it under the motor, jack it up with the wood on the motor. While you're jacking up, have somebody watch your motor mounts. And if the engine moves up and the motor mounts separate, that means they're broken and you need new ones. But if the engine and the body all lifts up at once and the mounts aren't cracked, then you're okay. That's the easiest way to check that. Squidbellies 1,000. Scotty, how much does your $1,000 scanner cost? I guess you are Squidbilly there. Of course it'd be $1,000. Although, truth be told, I don't buy any scan tools anymore. I get the company sending them to me. And I tell them the honest truth. They say, well, what do you charge to make a video on our scan tool? And I say, I don't charge anything. I said, I test out scan tools. If I like them, I use them in my videos. If I don't use them in my videos. So I get them all for free. So I actually paid zero. My $5,000 scan tool for my $3,500 scan tools. And for the $30 scan tools that I have to try out just to see if they work, I don't pay anything for any of them. But I test them out. That's the main thing that you want to know about a scan tool is, does somebody say, does it work for your purpose? You just want to get codes, reset codes, you can get a $35 scan tool. It'll be fine for you. You want to work on ABS systems? Generally, you're going to have to buy a $1,000 scan tool. You want to do things like bi-directional testing and reprogramming computers? Then you're going to the $35,000 to $5,000 and higher scan tools. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.